Okay, so hello to everyone from Jerusalem. We have very, very little time, so I'd like to start immediately. You can see I've prepared a few illustrations for you to make it more interactive. So Russian-speaking Jews in Israel, or Israel is from former Soviet Union. So just to start the whole story, I would like to make a very short introduction. Think of the next fact. All the prime ministers of Israel, all of them, are either first generation of those who were born in Russian Empire, I mean before the Soviet Union, or second generation of those who were born in Russian Empire. Why I'm saying that in the beginning? Because when we speak about Russian-speaking Jewry, about post-Soviet Jewry, it's not immigration. It's repatriation, because they come home, because they were dreaming about Israel, they were thinking about Israel, and when they come to Israel, they definitely feel that they came home. And you can see this picture, which I think is very touching, that shows a brother and sister that met when the brother made Aliyah and his sister were living here for many times. So just for you to understand, this is the former Soviet Union. The biggest country on earth, more than 30 million square kilometers, which is 3 times the United States. I don't want to even count to compare to Israel. And 30% of the Olim, including 70s and including 80s, including 70s and 90s, come from Russia, about 30% from Ukraine, about 10% from other European states, which is Moldova, Belarus, and the Baltic states, and about 30% from a Caucasian and Central Asian states, which is Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, so on. And they added actually 15% Jewish population when they came. About 80% of the Olim were Ashkenaz, and about 20% from what we call mountain Jews and Bukharian Jews. Now, demography. As we said, and our identity. 70% of them are halachic Jews, meaning the mother is Jewish. About 10% is second generation to Jews, meaning a son or a daughter to a Jew. About 10% third generation, and about 10%, even less, Poses. Very Zionist, very patriotic. 90% in the polls last year said they are Zionist, which is higher than any percentage, even beyond other Israeli groups. The religious identity, about 65% today consider themselves secular, about 28% traditional, about 5% religious, about 2% ultra-Orthodox, primarily Chabad. I don't have time to explain why, so we will just run with the data. Economy. The economic views are the older generation thinks welfare state, and the younger are very liberal in the matter of just give us the instruments and we will give us the open market and we will get whatever we want. They have the highest participation in the labor force in Israel, about 90%. Their academic education when they came was highest out of every other Aliyah, about 50% with academic education, almost twice from Israeli average, almost twice master degrees. Majority had education in exact sciences, engineering, and life sciences, many of which was integrated within the labor market with Israel, and definitely during the first 10 years, many of them didn't work in the field, and we know all these stories when the professor of physics was cleaning a street. These stories, unfortunately, were true. Economic status. You see this wonderful painting by Lisa Cherkassky, showing a kind of Zoya Cherkassky, sorry, showing kind of a poor family of Olim from former Soviet Union, This is definitely was right in the first 10 years, but after that, definitely I think that majority, full majority of the younger generation is the middle class, and the older generation still are more poor and depend on aid. But on the other hand, we have those who made money outside and then came with extreme wealth, and we have also those who came in the beginning of 90s and then left and made money and came back. And if you want to see the contrast, so the next picture, this is the mention of a Jew that had made money in Russia and then came to Israel and made Israel its home. This is in Caesarea. The man is Valery Kogan, the owner of one of the biggest airports of Russia. Settlement, sorry, before that, settlement. The majority live in big cities, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Rishon LeZion, Haifa, where the labor is, but big part in the periphery, Galilee, Golan, Negev, Judea, and Samaria. About 30% of the citizens of Judea and Samaria and West Jerusalem, the Jewish neighborhoods of West Jerusalem, are from the former Soviet Union, and those who came from big cities went primarily to the big cities. 30% of Jews above the green line, as I told you, are from former Soviet Union. Politics, and this is definitely very interesting and relevant. They are very right-wing, definitely the older generation. Why? Very briefly, they come from a superpower mentality, a realpolitik. You defeat your enemy and you don't negotiate, no trust to UN and Europe against any concessions, very patriotic, understand the value of nation state of the Jewish people, and they will not give up. You see in this picture as the Prime Minister meets veterans of the World War II, Jewish veterans from the World War II, all from the former Soviet Union, and this nice young man next to the Prime Minister is his former advisor who is speaking to you now. This picture is 9 years old. They are very active politically. In the national level, you definitely know that after 6 years from the beginning of Aliyah, the Russian-speaking Olim created their own party, head by Natan Sharansky, then the symbol of the Russian, of the Soviet Jewry, and Avigdor Lieberman created his party in '99, and until today, their voting is in the following way. There are about 20 mandates, let's generalize, which 70% of them go to Likud and Israel Beitenu, which is Avigdor Lieberman party. About 20%, mostly the young generation, vote for the center parties. About 5% vote to Shas, the Buharian and Mountain Jews who are Sephardic, vote to Shas, and very, very little support to lefts, those primarily who are younger and newer. Okay, international connections. Well, as you may understand, the Olim from the former Soviet Union has very, very, very various backgrounds, and there are those who come from Russia and Ukraine and Baltic states who are today members of the EU, so they're part of Europe. And we have those who come from Azerbaijan who understand Iran, and we have those who came from Uzbekistan and Georgia who definitely understand more Asia and Turkey. And today we have another million of Russian-speaking Jews who left to the North America. So every family of Israel is from former Soviet Union, has family in United States, in Canada, in Germany. So the internationalism is very, very wide. And in this picture, you can see former Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman speaks with the President of Russia, Putin. You definitely can see that they speak the same language, not only in matter of words. Security, a huge contribution to security. Well, definitely, I think that we can consider their political views and voting as a contribution to security, but high percentage of recruitment to IDF, one of the highest to combat units. Today, high percentage of in technological units, officers, as myself, intelligence and cyber. Took years of suspicion and the stereotypes, but definitely today it's all over. Shabak, Shin Bet, you can see on the right side of this picture, the former deputy head of Shin Bet, Yitzhak Ilan, born in the Soviet Union in Georgia. And on the left, you can see Brigadier General, today he's Brigadier General already, Roman Goffman, who definitely is one of the most popular combat senior officers. Many engineers were integrated in military industries, many of those who were working in the military industries in the former Soviet Union. Definitely space is another area of security where the former engineers from the former Soviet Union were integrated when they came to Israel. Science. You can see this very nice guy, Professor Michael Zinigrad, who is director of the University of Shomron in Ariel. Generally, if you go to Shomron University, I think that half of the staff speaks Russian between themselves. A lot of researchers and in academic institutions in the first line, like Weizmann Institute and Technion, from the former Soviet Union. Technology and high-tech. Well, you can see on this picture, Dr. Kira Radinsky, who was named one of the most influential scientists in Israel and one of the most influential Israeli young scientists in the world. Definitely many engineers and medium-level managers in Israeli high-tech, and definitely they brought boost to low-tech industrial engineering and technical professionals. I know that I read some interview on Shmuel Donnerstein, the owner of Rav Bariach, one of the biggest locking technologies company, and he says that you just get into our plants and you hear only Russian. Medicine. 30% of doctors from the beginning of 19th until now are those who came from the former Soviet Union, and they soon retire, which makes a huge problem of shortage in Israeli medical system. You can see on this picture Professor Leonid Edelman, who is former head of Israeli Medical Association, I think the most symbolic and popular of all of them. Government, meaning professional level, unfortunately not represented enough proportionally in management position, with few exceptions. And I think the biggest exception that I can remember is the Professor Eugene Kandel, who was born in Moscow but made his academic career in America and then came back. He was former head of the National Economic Council, which I was spokesman of when he was the head, and he was Netanyahu's nominee to be the head of the Central Bank of Israel. Media, well, there is a various and very, very wide Russian-speaking media in Israel. 2 TV channels, 3 radio stations, lots of newspapers. And definitely we today already can speak about very wide integration of Russian-speaking journalists within the mainstream Israeli media. Here you can see Alexandra Lukash, who is the anchor of the Ynet TV, the biggest online portal and biggest online TV station in Israel. In mainstream media, you definitely can see Yuna Leibson in 12 and Anna Barsky in Mariv and Dan Dobin in Galatz and so on and so on. It will definitely rise. Social media influencers, the most influential, I think, rated for many years as the most influential, and I think one of the funniest guys in Israel. His name is Evgeny Zarubinsky. Whoever understands Hebrew, follow him. You will like it. Well, definitely culture. This is the building of Gesher Theater in Jaffa, one of the most popular theaters today. Sports. Well, if you speak about sports, you definitely must speak about Shachmat. So this is Boris Gelfand, the Grandmaster, who is almost the champion of the world. And I would like to say a few words also about the stereotypes that, during first years, people spoke about lack of loyalty, that, every Ole from the former Soviet Union is a KGB agent. definitely today everybody understands that it's total lie and loss, that we thought like that. Contrary to all the stereotypes, police statistics say that Olim from former Soviet Union are involved in crime proportional to their representation. No more. All the accusations of mafia involvement were not proven. All the accusations of higher crime, of alcohol consumption was not proven. And because of the high percentage of secular and high percentage of assimilated families, as I told you before, they were accused of being non-Jewish, and this is also not true, as I told you already. And I must tell that many of the stereotypes mainly maintained because of the structure of the Israeli multi-partisan political system, when every sectorial party maintains image of enemy and other social group in Israel. Immigration, lots of stereotypes about the fact that Russian-speaking Israelis leave Israel. This is also a stereotype and a lie. Only about 88% left Israel, primarily to North America to study and to work and make business, but also left for good. But again, we don't know when people come back. You know, Eugene Kandel, Professor Kandel, was also one of those who we thought that left, and then he came back and became one of the most influential economists in Israel. But definitely more young, primarily for economic reasons, people leave. And we really hope that they will be back. One word about the future. I think that in the future, the contribution of the second generation of the Olim from the former Soviet Union will be much higher than the first generation, because they will be fully Israelis, they will be more traditional, they will have more connections, they will have more financial resources, and their families and friends in former Soviet Union, North America, and Europe, which they connected to, will also be much more influential in those countries. So definitely I think that they will be much more influential. I finished, and if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Great, thank you so much for that. What are the views of the Russian? Sorry? Yeah. What are the views of the Russian?
I see the questions. Are those the questions to answer?
Yeah, I'll be asking them though.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay. What are the views of the Russian community on democratic norms such as free speech, judicial independence, and free elections?
Well, I think this is another stereotype. Definitely Jews who came to Israel, they understand democracy, definitely the second generation. Sometimes they are accused of not understanding democracy just because they want order. They want the state to take control, not meaning that not to give freedom to the citizens, but definitely be organized and to control the situation, and to definitely in a state that fights their enemies. So I think there is, it's a stereotype that they don't have a democratic mentality.
Can you give us an idea of the numbers and demographics of the remaining Jews in the former Soviet Union? Yes. Yeah.
Well, I can just read the questions and answer so far. Can you give us an idea of the numbers and demographics of the Jewish communities remaining in Russia and the former Soviet Union? Well, very roughly, it very depends who you ask and what you consider Jewish. But we speak about 800,000 of Jews and part of their families.
Okay, I think we lost him again. Oh, there you are. Are you back with us?
Hello?
Hello, we lost you for a moment there.
Hello?
Hello?
Stacy, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I will Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, want to read the question, so you want me just to read an answer?
Okay, I'll read the next question. What is your personal story regarding your Aliyah? Hello?
Stacy, I cannot hear you.
I think we lost him again. I'm so sorry about this technical difficulty, everyone.
Okay, can you hear me? I would be happy to answer those questions that I got because they're amazing.
Sure, of course. Why don't you pick 2 questions and then we'll have to end it after that.
Okay, so I think this is a very good question. You have painted a rosy picture of integration of Russian immigrants, but we recall reading in real time of the difficulties professional Russians, especially doctors, had in obtaining Israeli licenses because of more strengthened Israeli requirements and standards. Could you comment? So first of all, I would like to comment, there are no Russian immigrants in Israel. There are Russian-speaking Jewish Israelis who repatriated to their homeland. Russians are in Russia, we're Jews. My mother's last name is Israel. That's the last name she was living with in former Soviet Union. Now, concerning the rosy picture of integration, yes, I told that during the first decade, there were lots of problems, and many of the educated people were not integrated in their field of work. But these times are very much over. I mean, definitely today, every young generation are those who either came in a very small age or grew up in Israel. I came when I was 16 alone. I don't consider myself, I consider myself Israeli. I grew up here, so I don't have any problem of integration. But again, yes, there are, fights between every group in Israel. I don't see that there is any discrimination, but I think in the governmental sector, yet there are more problems, but I'm not sure the problems of integration are because they're not wanted. I think that they just don't want to go to the government professional positions. I think everywhere the Russian-speaking Israelis want to be integrated, they're integrated. I don't think that there is any problem of stopping them, and if there is, it's very marginal. I think it's not relevant to 2020. What about useful ties of Russian Aliyah to Arabs as long-term clients of Russia? I think those who knew Arabs are retired already, but definitely there is a very well understanding of the Arab worlds from Russia, definitely from the former Soviet Union. How significant is the Russian mob in Israel today? Come on, guys, it's not serious. I told you, all these accusations are false. No any evidence we had about Russian mob. Do Russian Jews from the recent allies feel discriminated against? As I told, what is the intermarriage rate between Russians? Guys, I don't like the word Russians. There are Russian-speaking Israelis. Russians are in Russia. And also, you must understand that the Israelis who came from the former Soviet Union, only 30% came from Russia. Many of them came not from Russia, and it's a very big difference. Those who came from Uzbekistan or Azerbaijan are very, very different to those who came from Russia, from St. Petersburg or Moscow.
All right, Mr. Selsky, I'm so sorry. We have come to the close of our webinar. Thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you. And again, peace from Jerusalem.
Thank you. Tune in on Wednesday for Mr. Perry's weekly update at 3 p.m. Eastern on all things Israeli, as well as Dr. Amatzia Baram's Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, speaking on Iraq and turmoil. What does the future hold? Please be sure to check out our website, www.muforum.org, our YouTube channel, and SoundCloud for recordings of past webinars. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful day.